I want to take you into a world of make-believe and see if we can kind of get an idea of what it might be like to be in the presence of a narcissist and how it can impact your emotional disposition. And the story goes like this. Let's suppose that we have a narcissist called Mr. N. And Mr. N says, I'd like to invite you to my house. I'm having a very nice dinner party, and I want you to come and be my special guest of honor. Sounds pretty nice, right? So at the appointed time, you make your way to that person's front porch, and he greets you there, and he says, well, I'm pleased to have you here, but before you come in, we do have a quick little item of business that we have to go over. And he pulls out a sheet of paper, and it's typed up nice and neat, and at the top of the paper, it says, Mr. N's rules and regulations, here's how you're supposed to live when you come into my house. And so at that point, Mr. N begins reading all of the things on the sheet of paper. Now, it's all based on common sense, which means you can't argue. And so here we go. Number one, you have to be kind and pleasant. Number two, you're supposed to exhibit patience. Number three, you'd better show respect to the rest of my guests. Number four, you can't be a critic. You have to be an encourager. Number five, you're supposed to forgive me if I ever do something wrong. And then he goes all the way down the list until he finishes and then turns the paper over to you and says, now, sign right here at the bottom and come on in. What are you going to think? How's that going to hit you? Well, let's suppose for the sake of illustration, you think, well, you're kind of looking inside. Everybody seems to be there and having a nice time. The music's playing, the food smells good, and surely it can't be that bad. So you decide that you're going to humor Mr. N. You sign and you make your way in. Mr. N goes off to the back and someone comes and grabs you by the arm. They're going to be your brand new best friend. They're going to take you and show you around the place and introduce you to all the many people there, show you where the refreshments are, make sure that you have a good time. It's going okay. About 15 minutes into it, along comes Mr. N and taps you on the shoulder. You turn and Mr. N says, let's go back and do a quick review. On this list that we talked about here, number 7 here says this, and I noticed over there you didn't do things very well. Go back and try harder. Okay, you go back and you mix and you mingle and you're trying your best to get along with the rest of the guests. Well, about another 15 minutes, same thing. Mr. N brings you off to the side and says, number 18 here. Let's reread this and, in fact, read it out loud for me. And then I want you to talk to me about those people over there and how you're going to engage with them. Make sure you do it according to these specifications. So you go back and you try and you mix and you mingle and you're doing your best. And then throughout the entire evening, Mr. N just keeps coming and tapping you on the shoulder, explaining to you what you're supposed to think and do. Over time, what kind of emotions will you experience? Well, if you're like most people, you're going to feel agitated and irritable. You're going to feel annoyed. Every time you see Mr. N walking your direction, you're going to think, oh, great, here he comes again. And there's going to be an edginess that you feel. If Mr. N is successful, maybe he can put some guilt trips on you. You're going to wind up being more guarded, cautious, calculated. Your entire emotional disposition is going to head straight south. Now, inside this illustration, we have you and your emotions, but now we have Mr. N. As the evening unfolds for him, what kind of emotions will he experience? And actually, Mr. N's not going to be in a very good mood either. He's going to be agitated, impatient, annoyed, irritable. He's going to be thinking, I have your signature right here. There it is right there. Why can't you just do what you're supposed to do? And so Mr. N is going to maybe start feeling insecure or inadequate, like maybe we're not getting along very well. I wonder why that might be. And you're both going to have a rotten time together. It's a pretty absurd illustration, isn't it? What's going on in a time like this? Well, actually, we have what we call a whole host of covert messages that are being spoken by Mr. N toward you. Mr. N has that agenda, and covertly, as you're being reminded of that agenda, you're basically being told, I don't accept you the way you are. I don't respect you either. In fact, I don't trust you either. And let's keep in mind who's superior and who's inferior. You're beneath me. That's the way it works when you're inside the house of Mr. N. Now, I want you to begin thinking, do you know anybody that might have a resemblance to that? Do you have that person in your life that just seems to operate as if there's just an agenda? Now, they may not be quite as formal as Mr. N and type it up and make you sign it at the bottom, but there are some people you know right there, they've got an agenda, and they're not at all bashful about explaining to you what's on the agenda. And people who, like Mr. N, have that agenda for you, they tend to use a lot of persuasion in their tone of voice, a lot of insistence and coercion. Come on, why can't you just do what you're supposed to do? What does that do to you? Well, you can have very much the same kind of emotions as that guest at the guest party or at the dinner party is going to have. It just creates all this undertow of tension. Let's take that same illustration, though. This time it's not Mr. N, but it's Mr. F. F stands for freedom. And you come to that person's front door. They've got all their guests that are there. And Mr. F says, you know, I'm glad to have you here. You're welcome here. My place is your place. Make yourself at home. And then throughout the evening, there's engagement, there's pleasantness, there's friendliness, and you have no sense that anyone's breathing down your neck. Now, how are you going to feel? What kind of emotions will you have? You're going to be much more relaxed. You're going to be at ease. There's going to be a calmness. That's the difference when you're in the presence of someone who doesn't have an agenda, but they want you to feel free to be what you are. And it goes back to those covert messages. In Mr. F's house, there is a covert message that says, yes, you are accepted. And by the way, I trust you. And respect is something that you don't have to worry about. I'm going to offer it to you. And you're my equal. There is no condescension here. So I want you to think about some of your primary engagements with that narcissistic individual. Which one of those people at the dinner party are they going to be like? Mr. N, who has that real strong agenda, or Mr. F, who says, when you're in my presence, you're free to be what you are? Now, there's certain characteristics that you can see that kind of go along with that agenda-driven way of interaction. Think of these kind of characteristics and see if these don't have a real strong control dimension. In characteristics like criticism, insistence, persuasion, agitation, easy annoyance, stubbornness, closed-minded, coercion, guilt induction. Those are the characteristics of that narcissistically driven person who has that agenda, and they are not going to rest until you match pitch with the agenda. But then I want you to think about some of the characteristics of the person that wants you to have the freedom to be what you are. Notice what they bring to the forefront. Characteristics like flexibility, patience, openness, curiosity, encouragement, friendliness, and kindness. Those are kind of the characteristics that are very non-narcissistic. And if you had to choose which house you wanted to go to for dinner, I think I can guess which one you would want to go to. Narcissists don't want you to have the privilege to just simply show up and be what you are. It's like, oh no, I'm not taking that chance. In their insecurity and driven by their egotism, but believe me, it's insecurity. It's like, I can't afford to let people be what they are. I have to go ahead and control the agenda. I have to make sure that everything unfolds the way I say it's supposed to be. Then I can walk away feeling satisfied, and they're oblivious to the emotional duress that they create. But I'm hoping that you can see through it, knowing that they have all of that stubbornness and agitation that goes along with it. And you can decide, you know, when you invite me to that party, I think I have other things, other kind of plans that I can tend to. Thanks, but no thanks. I want to go and be with those who allow me the privilege to simply be me. It's important for you as you're engaging with these narcissistic individuals to know that they can get inside your head with all of those covert messages of disdain, and they can mess with your sense of self-esteem and your self-image. But the more you see it, the more you're onto it, then you can make your much better and separate plans. I want you to proceed with a sense of freedom that says, when I engage with anyone, I'm not taking a huge risk to say, I get to be me. You get to be you, and let's see if we have a good blending. And if we do, we'll continue forward. If not, we'll have to figure out what that means. I'm not very good when I'm trying to live according to someone's mandated agenda. In fact, let's just take that agenda and burn it. I'm not there. I want to be with people who understand freedom and acceptance is where it's at. Those are the people that I want to spend my time with. I do hope that you find some good instruction and information and inspiration from videos such as this. If you've not yet done so, go beneath and hit our subscribe button. We'll keep you apprised of more videos that come along. We also have a website, survivingnarcissism.tv, and we're loading up all sorts of new things on there with articles and that go with some of our videos and quizzes and other kinds of things that I think you'll find to be interesting. Check it out. I think you're going to really like it. It'll add to what we're doing here on our YouTube channel. If you have a need for online counseling, we vetted a group and I've received good feedback from people. Right now, a lot of folks want to do that kind of thing in an online kind of way. We have a link below where people are standing by can help you with that. Also, if you need to have any kind of hormonal check, we have a group that'll help you out with that. Letsgetchecked.com. We have a link for that. In addition, we have links for my books, my online video workshops, and we even have coffee mugs. So know that we're trying to be a resource that can help you in that regard. Now, as you go from here, I want you to know that you don't have to be on someone else's hard agenda. You can have principles, you can have standards and values, but you don't need to do it in such a way that they're just going to pound on you until you fit the agenda. Be you and know that being you is quite sufficient. Being you is enough. I wish for you peace.